Teaching to the test pattern.
Hey, buddy, welcome to StreamSemester.com's Teaching to the Test Pattern. I'm Tom White. Very special episode today because it's not me doing the interview. It's an interview with Dr. AWStevens from North Greenville University. And when we got down to Camp T&I, my voice just kind of got weird. I don't know. I don't know if it was the extra humidity or what, but Josh stepped in and did a great job interviewing Dr. Stevens. Dr. Stevens is, again, from North Greenville University. He's been a big supporter of video production education around the Southeast, and he's come to Camp T&I a couple of times, and that's where this conversation happened. And Josh just stepped in and did a great job. I'm really excited to share this with you. And if you go to StreamSemester.com and you look for the page related to this podcast episode, you're going to find some really cool stuff. You're going to find, obviously, information about Dr. Stevens, but he's got a white paper on how to produce football for live stream. So you got to go check that out at StreamSemester.com. Something else you got to check out, AmiTrace, AMITRACE.com. At T&I, lots of conversations happened, but one of the most frequent conversations was I had an idea about what I wanted to do with my equipment in my classroom, in my lab, called AmiTrace, talked to them. They gave me a better idea at a better price than I was thinking and looking at. And it just made sense. It was things that I didn't think about. And I'm going to tell you the truth. I had the same conversation with AmiTrace just before T&I about some stuff we're doing here. Give them a shout. AMITRACE.com. Shoot them an email, set up a time to talk with them, talk through what you're going through. They're working on some really cool stuff with building out new projects and that kind of stuff. So we'll have that for you soon on StreamSemester.com. But definitely AMITRACE.com. Go check them out now and enjoy the rest of this episode.
Teaching to the test pattern.
So we're here with Dr. AWStevens from North Greenville University. This is the second time that I've had a chance to see you here at Camp T&I, and just always impressed with what you're doing with your students. I keep trying to kind of push some kids to North Greenville. I'm like, yeah, I've got a kid this year that I was like, oh, you need this, where you need to go, this, where you need to go. He ended up going to Valdosta, and he's doing really well, but I think he would have been a good fit for y'all's program. But I love having you come in and share your experiences with us today. And I feel bad doing this, but I'm like, if I don't write these notes down or whatever, I will lose it. And I actually made a graphic of something that you said, where you said that our job as teachers is to make students their own best teacher. And I thought that was just incredibly profound. I try to find, you were talking about nuggets. I try to find that nugget from each of the presentations and all of the live production and everything you talked about. It was that statement that I was like, wow, that's fantastic. Can you talk a little bit about that to our teacher friends?
Sure. I've worked in the business since 1979. I was a high school intern working in New Orleans, Louisiana, WDSU TV, and I was blessed with some wonderful mentors. Mentors who would take me in, teach me, correct me, whatever was needed, but to help me grow. They saw my best interest as their goal. And follow up 40 years later, actually 35. Give or take a little bit. Who's counting? When I worked on my dissertation was on developing a culture that fosters leadership. And as I did interviews with the students who worked through this project, the key thing they said was, "Oh, Dr. Campbell did this. This was what I was looking for. Y'all trusted us." And the key thing that came up again and again was mentoring. Now, I say that because mentors are gold, meaning they're precious and they're rare. Really, if a person's going to succeed in this business, they're going to have to become their own best teacher. They have to learn how to go into a situation, learn what they can, do their best. It's not an excuse to do shoddy work, but do their best and then say, I can do better. And so they have to become their own best teacher because mentors are hard to find. And if they can develop the habits of self-education, if you will. And our job as teachers is to help develop those habits. So when you go to a situation, don't kick yourself after every mistake and walk around complaining because you weren't perfect. You're not going to be. You're going to make mistakes. Instead, use those mistakes. Help your students work with those mistakes to teach themselves. Take notes. Like I said, after a production, we have our little debrief session where they have to share a nugget, something they've learned. In every one of my productions, and I even use this with my speech students, they write a 100-word to 200-word debrief, depending on the nature of the class. What went right? What went wrong? What they're going to do better next time, and a couple of nuggets of things they learned in production to get them thinking that way.
Yeah. Tom gave a presentation yesterday on failing to succeed. So learning from those mistakes is exactly what you're talking about. It's taking those moments where things don't go exactly the way we want them to, and then growing through that. And I think having mentors that have lived that and then are imparting that wisdom to students, I think is fantastic. So I thought that quote was really, to me, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to go back and I'm preaching that to my students day one. Okay. So thank you for that. So I do want to talk a little bit more about you. You said nearly 40 years of experience in industry. Can you kind of talk a little bit about your path, how you got to where you are? And I was trying to keep track of all the jobs you were saying today, and then bagpipes. I was like, oh my goodness, God does everything. So tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. Started when I was in high school as both working at a radio station. We had a radio station. I grew up in New Orleans Baptist Seminary, and we had a small whopping 10-watt station that barely covered the 78 acres, but that's where I started. And I worked at a local TV station as a high school intern, which was an excellent program where I spent 4 days a week at the station learning all the departments and fell in love when I worked in the studio because I love production. From there, went on to Baylor. In fact, the TV station hired me for the summer in the sales department, and they threw me a retirement party when I went on to college. Went to Baylor 4 years, assistant in the department there. That's where I learned a lot of my technology and signal flow. And, I actually, instead of using the little switches in the computer, I actually worked with a real processing amp, a real proc amp, real TVCs, really old school. From there on to spent the summers working internships, working any jobs I could get in production. Went on to grad school up at Marquette and continued doing corporate production on the side while I did my master's work. Went from there after I graduated, worked at the Baptist Sunday School Board with the educational network that was satellite. Went there for 6 years, traveling all over the country, setting up multi-camera and single-camera shoots. Actually designed a flight pack that we used, and it sounds fancy, but it was really just, putting a switcher and some monitors into a box. But I learned about Genlock and things like that. So I think that's the key. All the time I'm like, oh, wow, how can I take this knowledge and apply it to the next thing? Went from there to teach college for 6 years at Missouri Baptist College and teach production. It's where I first learned and worked the precursor to the TriCaster, the old video toaster technology. Way back then, that'll date me. From there, went to Galveston, Texas, where I worked in audiovisual support. I was in bivocational ministry there, actually working in a church. And then my day job was doing system design, setup, execution, billing, all that stuff for audiovisual. And we worked with video, lighting. Intelligent lighting was just coming out extensively, all that kind of thing. But I also developed a role as a training facilitator. And that's the key for all of you as teachers. I know teaching is a calling, and the teacher in me had to come out, even started developing a corporate trainer role. From there, went to worked as GM for an LPTV. So I was GM and pseudo engineer, and I mopped the studio.
Did it all?
Or vacuumed. We had to carpet. But again, a lot of experience based there. And from there, 17 years ago, God led me on to North Greenville University. And been teaching there 17 years. We've gone through various studio upgrades in the television studio, and I'm going through one right now, switching from a traditional cameras in the studio system to a hybrid that ties NDI location, REMI type shooting into studio where we could do announcers in the studio and cameras out on site at the venues for production. And in the meantime, I've also started doing a lot of sideline video production, and I'll do anywhere from 30, 40 plus productions every year, working high school football, I work soccer. It's funny, one of my bucket list items was to work an NFL game for camera, and I've actually worked as a grip on a couple of those. So I got hit by a football thrown by a quarterback from the Tampa Bay, not Tom Brady. But when I worked for a MLS, Major League Soccer game, I actually had a bigger global audience running game cam for that than I ever would have shooting a regular NFL game.
That's true. That's
we
awesome.
need to be aware soccer is the global sport, the global football. But anyway, doing all kind of stuff. I've had a bull hook my leg with his horns and another bull to, shall we say, clean out his bowels at me while running camera. That was an interesting experience. I've been knocked flat by receivers coming off the sidelines. I've been knocked flat by a basketball player. It's and my students are like, you should be getting hazard pay. But I have a blast.
I was about to say,
doing it.
Like, the whole time you're telling me this, you're smiling. You clearly love doing this.
Oh, yeah, it's fun. It's fun telling the stories.
That's awesome.
And with the students especially, it's really fun to see them grow. Yeah, trying to help them catch the fun. If we sit around and mope about this, that, and everything, they're going to get that attitude. But if we go out there, take them, give them new adventures, yeah, we're going to make mistakes. Yeah, it's going to be some long, hard hours. But now I've got a reporter who may be becoming a news anchor who came through our program, and I have great colleagues who are practitioners as well. And so we've got Mary Margaret down in Louisiana. We've got Casey in Mississippi. We've got Graham, who's now up here in Augusta in Georgia realms. We got kids who are going out. Kids, okay, yeah, I know they're young adults, but anyway, I'm 62. I can call them kids. That are going out and making a difference, and not just in broadcast. We've got people who are working in schools, working in colleges, who are working in churches, who are setting up their own companies. One of the fastest growing companies for video production in Greenville, and in fact, they have a branch in Atlanta, is one of our alums. But they have fun. They have the vision, if you will.
All right. So I did ask about, your message to our teachers and everything. And then we've heard about your career. And again, you are at North Greenville.
Yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about what they offer specifically for our video and film teachers who are encouraging students to head your way?
Okay. We've just made a major curriculum change, and I'm excited about it. We have 2 degrees. One is strategic comm, the other is digital media, because we've come to realize that the traditional divisions of this is broadcast television, this is online, etc. It's all digital. So under digital media, we have a production focus. We have a journalism focus. My colleague, Randall King, is actually a former news producer from WYFF out of Greenville, and then he went on, got his PhD, and has been teaching for several years. But he has the heart of a journalist, and he'll put him to work. I mean, he is very passionate about telling good stories. In digital media, I have 2 colleagues. In more of the online and marketing, Dr. Campbell and Ms. Eller. Mrs. Jackson, excuse me, she got married, who teach with online graphics design. Writing is big. And I tell you what, if people are going to be working with anything with online media and with journalism, they have got to learn to write. Well, those 2 are stellar with that. And then complementing with Dr. King. We have a film program, Film Focus. It's not a degree in film, it's digital media with a film focus. And my 2 colleagues there, Dr. Gopalakrishnan and Professor Benet, both come from film and documentary backgrounds, and they teach there. I teach multi-camera production with sports production. Like I said, I've worked over 40 sporting events a year, doing a wide variety of sports. And I also teach media ministry. Now that throws us to the other side, which is StratComm. And strategic comm is more focused on intentional content. So PR, public relations, media ministry, and communication studies, people who want to go on for graduate school and with the basics in communication studies. And we try to keep our equipment up to date. Like I said, I'm going through a major upgrade right now. We have equipment students can check out to work with the different production tasks. And we believe in a lot of hands-on, but anchored in solid academic tradition.
You said at one point that you, and this was before you got into college teaching, that you were a training facilitator. Yeah. And facilitator is a word, whenever I hear it, I'm like, oh, wait, that's me. I was recently selected as the teacher of the year, and I remember going through the interview process. I was like, I don't think I'm a very good teacher. I'm a facilitator. Like, I take these opportunities and I give it to students. It's up to them what they do with it. Yeah. And I think that I appreciated you realizing that facilitating opportunity is a big part of what we do.
People do not learn well I shouldn't say that. People learn in a variety of ways. I'm actually working on an essay on this topic about how we develop a concept of what is reality around us. The book will be coming out. No. But we learn in a variety of ways. And if the old model of, that you see in Paper Chase in the old TV show, where you have the wizened old professor, the sage on the stage. This field especially is not the sage on the stage. We need to give foundational knowledge out there. They need to know what is good composition, the rule of thirds. They understand, the difference between HDMI and SDI and things like that. There are basics they need to understand. But if you're going to have a skill, you have to exercise the skill to develop it. And that's where the facilitation comes. I will give them a certain base level, set them loose, and they will come back and they'll say, okay, this went right. This went, you could have worked on this a little bit. But then they can internalize. But again, the students have to see your goal is not even necessarily to win that regional competition. It's to help them to be the best that they can be at what they're doing. And if you win the regional competition, fantastic. But it's not to bring accolades to you as a teacher or accolades to the school. It's to help them to become the best that they can be at what they're doing.
Well, I appreciate your time. This has been fantastic. I know that you have the white paper on how to do live football production, multi-cam production. And hopefully in Stream Semester, we can figure out a way to point to that so that people can go and check that out. I know it's a great resource. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we come to an end here?
I want to encourage those who would be listening. We have an opportunity to help develop people, and it's kind of like sports. No, not everybody. Very few of the people that we teach who come through our football programs are going to play for the NFL. But, I've met some wonderful people who came through athletics, who the lessons learned through athletics, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, soccer, softball, whatever. What they learn about teamwork and growth and all that, and skills and sticking with it. Media is the same way. They can develop, even if they don't become engineers, if they understand signal flow, they learn logical process. Even though they may not become financiers, learning how to budget in a production class. They're learning, only so much money coming in, so much going out. This is going to help me in my personal finance. This is a platform for us to teach life. Yes. And so don't miss out on those opportunities to help those people grow as students and, more importantly, as people. Yeah. Because we're at a prime precious and sacred spot in their lives.
And that is it. Like, he gets to the heart. Okay, I'm looking at Tom and I'm like, we're nodding. But anyway, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for coming and talking to everybody here at Camp T&I again, and for taking some time here with Stream Semester with Tom and me. We really appreciate it, and look forward to learning from you again next time.
Teaching to the test pattern.
There you have it. Great job by Josh Dempsey holding down the interview there. And thank you again to Dr. Stevens for his input and sharing and caring for educators and really all that he does for his students, for live productions around the Greenville area. Really proud to know Dr. Stevens. And thank you again for listening. If you're again considering building out new space in your classroom or your studio, go check out Amitrace, AMITRACE.com. Thank you for their sponsorship. Thank you for listening. And as always, go out and make some awesome.